again to the Medical Terminology Podcast. This episode is Chapter 6, Part 1, Lymphatic System Anatomy and Word Parts. Chapter 6 is much shorter than the previous chapters, but it presents its own unique challenges because it actually covers two overlapping body systems, the lymphatic and the immune systems, and this overlap can be confusing. Also, these body systems do not have clearly defined anatomies. When dealing with the lymphatic system, we need to be wary of the difference between the form of an organ or tissue and its function. Some structures are composed of lymphatic tissue, so they are lymphatic in form, but they may also serve other purposes or functions in one or more of the other body systems. The lymphatic system performs three major functions: absorbing fats or fat-soluble vitamins from the small intestine, removing waste from tissues, and aiding the immune system. Let's begin by reviewing the blood. What are the two major components of blood? Well, I hope you remembered it's the plasma and the formed elements. Now, when blood reaches the capillaries, the plasma flows out of the capillaries into spaces between the cells, transporting food and oxygen and picking up waste products. When the plasma is outside of the capillaries and between the cells, it's known as interstitial fluid, interstitial. Now, 90% of this fluid re-enters the circulatory system, goes into capillaries, goes through the veins, circulates back to the heart. But 10% of this fluid is picked up by the lymphatic system. When the plasma takes this detour and goes into the lymphatic system, the plasma then is called lymph, L-Y-M-P-H. And the word part that means lymph is lympho, L-Y-M-P-H/O. Now, once the lymph enters the lymphatic system, it is transported by the lymphatic vessels. And the word part for lymphatic vessels is lymphangio, L-Y-M-P-H-A-N-G-I/O. And if you look at it, this makes sense because we learned in the last chapter that angio means vessels. We know now that lymph refers to lymph, so lymphangio would have to be a lymph vessel. The third major part of the lymphatic system is the lymph node. The lymph node is a structure that filters the lymph as it is passing through the lymphatic system. And the word part that refers to the lymph nodes is lymphadeno, L-Y-M-P-H-A-D-E-N/O. Now, we learned way back, I think, in Chapter 2 that adeno refers to a gland. Technically, lymph nodes aren't glands. However, they are sometimes referred to as lymph glands in addition to lymph nodes. But unlike a true gland, they do not form secretions. Be that as it may, the word part for lymph nodes is lymphadeno. And our textbook points out that there are different types of lymph nodes. Actually, lymph nodes are found throughout the body, but there are certain areas where they tend to cluster. One area is in the neck, and the cluster of lymph nodes in the neck is known as cervical lymph nodes, C-E-R-V-I-C-A-L. Another major cluster is located in the armpits, and these are referred to as axillary lymph nodes, A-X-I-L-L-A-R-Y. A third major cluster is located in the groin, and these are the inguinal lymph nodes, I-N-G-U-I-N-A-L. And finally, there are lymph nodes clustered around the knees or behind the knee, and these are referred to as popliteal lymph nodes, Popiteal. And when you're sick and go to the doctor, you may notice that the doctor will tend to feel these areas. The doctor's checking the lymph nodes to see if they're swollen up. If they are, that's an indication that you may have an infection. Okay, now that we've talked about the basics of the lymphatic system, let's go ahead and look at some of the similarities and differences between the lymphatic system and the cardiovascular system. First of all, when we look at the cardiovascular system, the blood moves in a circle. If we go and just do a quick and dirty sketch here, there's the heart, and we know that blood leaves the heart oxygen enriched in an artery, goes through the capillaries to the cells. There's an exchange of waste and oxygen, and then the blood returns to the heart through the veins. And then it just keeps repeating. The blood just keeps going around and around in this pattern. Lymph, on the other hand, moves in only one direction. Remember, the lymph drains out from that interstitial fluid between cells. It enters the lymphatic system. Then it goes up and it rejoins the venous system. So the lymph is not going in circles. It's just a one-way street, like this, from the cells back to the venous circulation. And then in the blood circulation, again, that's going in circles. But the lymphatic circulation is one direction only, in and out. And that leads us to the next point, is that the blood, or the circulatory system, is an open system. And what we mean by that is blood will enter and exit through the capillaries. At this point here, where they're getting to the cells, the blood actually leaves the circulatory system to get to the cells. It goes through the capillaries and actually gets to the cells, and so it's leaving the system. Then it re-enters the system at the veins. So that's what we mean by an open system. It can actually get out of the cardiovascular system temporarily and then go back into it. The lymphatic system is a closed system. The lymph exits into the venous circulation and it enters at the cells. At no point while it's in the lymphatic system does it leave the lymphatic system and then come back in. There's one entrance, one exit. During the whole time lymph is in the lymphatic system, it stays in the lymphatic system. Whereas the blood actually can leave the circulatory system temporarily, then it re-enters it for the return to the heart. And that brings up the next point. Blood is pumped by the heart. We've got the mighty heart here, a big pump, pumping this blood around in a circle. There's nothing to pump the lymph. Lymph is not pumped. Lymph is able to move through the lymphatic vessels because it depends on the motion of muscles and other organs that are nearby. It's able to pick up basically energy, pumping action from them, and it forces the lymph through. But the lymph is not really benefiting from the heart circulation because the circulation of the heart again goes this way. And finally, the blood is filtered by the kidneys, whereas the lymph is filtered by the lymph nodes. Again, remember, there are clusters of lymph nodes in different parts of the body. and the lymph will pass through these things and get filtered out. In the case of the cardiovascular system, there is a period where blood comes down this mighty abdominal aorta, goes into the kidneys, and then, after getting filtered, the blood continues on its way through a vein. Something like that. So that is the filtration action of the cardiovascular system of the blood. Again, the lymph nodes filter the lymphatic system. And so I hope this little chart helps a little bit. The textbook talks about this, but again, I'm big on the mapping and having a visual representation of what the text is talking about. Lymph, lymphatic vessels, and lymph nodes are the major structures of the lymphatic system. But there are some other tissues in the body that are lymphatic in nature. The first set of lymphatic tissues are the tonsils. The tonsils form a protective ring around the back of the nose and the upper throat. And these lymphatic tissues are performing an immune function. They're protecting the body from invasion by pathogens. The word part for tonsils is tonsillo, Tonsill/O. Notice that the word part has a double L in it, Tonsill/O, whereas the word tonsil just has a single L. The second lymphatic tissue is the thymus. The thymus is a gland that's located just above the heart, and its function actually is as part of the endocrine system because the thymus actually does secrete hormones. So that actually makes it a gland. The word part for thymus is thymo, Thym/O. The third lymphatic tissue is the spleen. Spleen is spelled Spleen, but the word part that stands for spleen is spleno, Splen/O. So again, we have a kind of a disparity between the spelling of the word and the spelling of the word part. Now, what is the spleen? The spleen is an organ that's inferior to the diaphragm and posterior to the stomach. And it functions as part of the cardiovascular and the immune systems. It has dual functions, even though, again, its form, it's made of lymphatic tissue. As far as being part of the immune system, it is a place where lymphocytes and monocytes can form and grow, and it also does serve as a filter for foreign material from the blood. But it also has a cardiovascular function. First of all, it forms a hemolytic function. And do you remember what hemolytic means? Well, hemolytic means the destruction or breakdown of blood, specifically blood cells. The spleen breaks down old, tired, worn out blood cells. Also, it is a storage place for erythrocytes. And I hope you remember from the last chapter what erythrocytes mean. What are erythrocytes? Well, I hoped you remembered red blood cells. So the spleen stores the red blood cells. It also destroys or breaks down the tired and worn out red blood cells. The next piece of lymphatic tissue is the lacteals, Lacteals. These are located throughout the small intestine and they function to absorb fats. And so they function as part of the digestive system. Next, we have the Peyer's patches, P-E-Y-E-R''S, patches, P-A-T-C-H-E-S. These are located in the ileum, which is the last part of the small intestine. They mature lymphocytes, and so their function is as part of the immune system. Finally, we have the vermiform appendix, V-E-R-M-I-F-O-R-M, appendix, A-P-P-E-N-D-I-X. Usually we just refer to it as the appendix. And this is located in the cecum, which is the first part of the large intestine. And not a lot is known about how or what the appendix does, but it is suspected that it performs an immune function. Okay, now that I've gone over the different types of lymphatic tissue and their word parts, let's do some practice. What is the word part that refers to lymph? Well, that's lympho, L-Y-M-P-H/O. What is the term for the blood plasma that has left the capillaries and is exchanging materials with the cells? Well, that's interstitial fluid, interstitial fluid, F-L-U-I-D. And what is the term for the structures that filter lymph? Those are the lymph nodes, L-Y-M-P-H, nodes, N-O-D-E-S. And which lymphatic tissue has a hemolytic function? Well, that's the spleen, S-P-L-E-E-N. Which lymphatic tissue is located in the ileum and has an immune function? Those are the Peyer's patches, P-E-Y-E-R''S, P-A-T-C-H-E-S. Which lymphatic tissue functions as an endocrine gland? Well, that's the thymus, T-H-Y-M-U-S. And what is the word part that refers to a lymph node? That's lymphadeno, L-Y-M-P-H-A-D-E-N/O. Which lymphatic tissue forms a protective ring around the back of the nose and throat? Well, that's the tonsils, T-O-N-S-I-L-S. And what is the word part that refers to the tonsils? That's tonsillo, T-O-N-S-I-L-L/O. And which type of lymph tissue absorbs fats? Well, those are the lacteals, L-A-C-T-E-A-L-S. And what is the word part that refers to the spleen? That's spleno, S-P-L-E-N/O. And finally, what is the term for the lymph nodes that are located in the armpits? Those are the axillary lymph nodes, AXILLARY, lymph, LYMPH, nodes, NODES. Okay, well, that covers the basics of the lymphatic system and what it does. Of the three things that it does do, probably the biggest thing is assisting the immune system. So when we go on and look at the immune system, we certainly are going to be revisiting the lymphatic system and going into a lot more detail about it. This ends this episode of the Medical Terminology Podcast.